All right, so it is top of the hour now. Let's just get started. Welcome everyone to the next Community Relations Group Conversation. I'm David Brunella, Director of Community Relations here at GitLab. And today I will start with a quick summary of what's been happening in the last few weeks since the last conversation. And then, as usual, we will open it to questions. Let me start by just sharing my screen. All right. So a quick overview of the team. We're a team of program managers and community advocates currently spanning 2 continents. And we cater to different parts of our community. In particular, right now, we are highly focused on contributors, on evangelists, and moving on and growing the team on open source and education. This is something that we've got programs for already, but we're currently looking for great candidates to have dedicated program managers for each one of those areas of our community. And yeah, as you can see on the link, if you know a great candidate, please let us know. Send a referral. You'll find the link on the handbook on how to do this. It's very easy. Some quick words on what we do. If you have some time, perhaps after this this call, do watch this video. It's not just very vivid, but it's very inspiring as well. It illustrates part of the work that we do in growing our contributor community, which is our main goal. It's not just about making having more and more contributors, converting them from consumers to people who actually provide some code, provide some feedback. It is about creating a culture of leadership as well. Essentially leading with the example and empowering people to become leaders so that they can inspire others to multiply this effect. So yeah, if you've had some minutes, do have a look at it. It's very enjoyable as well. And then before going into the questions part, or the conversation rather, some highlights, lowlights since last conversation. We've been doing very well in terms of meetup growth. We've reached over 500, I think it's 5.4K members on our meetup network. It's even been 1,000 more people since the last call. We've got about 29 groups, I think, spanning over to 20 countries, which is really awesome. Also, kudos to John Kovlan for managing this program, and how happy he's grown that area. Heroes program is something that we launched, or we were about to launch on the last conversation. It's doing very well. You can see the details on the slides further down the presentation. We've got about 20 heroes who have applied and been approved for the program, and who will help us essentially bringing more talks doing more talks for GitLab and expanding our network. We had a great Q3 hackathon a couple of weeks ago. It was our biggest so far. We got about 100 contributions, which is pretty awesome and pretty impressive. We've got the KD announcement coming on this week. Essentially, the announcement of the migration of to their instance of GitLab. We've got some open source migration from leading projects. Arch Linux and the Tor project are two of the most significant ones. And also not to forget mentioning things where we need to improve, or things that haven't been working that well. It's been a bit of a struggle to find great candidates for the education program manager role, especially finding the right person who has the combination of drive, interest for education, network, a good background network on education, and with international institutions, with educational institutions. So again, if you know someone, please let us know. One thing that we've been more aware of lately is the coverage for when we get mentions from the wider community. If there's something that's been mentioned on Hacker News, for instance, and it becomes a larger discussion, We've got some challenges there in terms of how much of time zone our applicants can cover. And then finally, we had declining contributions on 12.1 and 12.2 releases. We're recovering from that, but we're working on a plan to make sure that we address that. And then finally, we're about to launch the startup program. We're close, but we're not quite there yet. I think with this, I'll just stop sharing and we can move on to the conversation.
It looks like I have the first question. So if I remember correctly, the most recent hackathon was on 2 weekdays. Just curious if they're always on weekdays or if weekends have been explored and why they were on weekdays.
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Emily. Yeah, they've always been on weekdays, and this question did come up, I mean, in the past, at least from one of the core team members. I mean, the challenge of doing this over the weekend is that, I mean, during the hackathon, we're not only getting like merge requests from people, but we also have like a tutorial sessions, I mean, from both like the GitLab team members and wider community members. So I mean, I didn't necessarily want to ask people to, I mean, make time available to do like a tutorial session over the weekend. And also, I mean, although we're, you know, sort of, you know, accepting those MRs and people are contributing MRs, you know, during those two-day periods during the week, we have like another 10-day period where, I mean, the merge request could be merged, right? Because I mean, we don't necessarily think it's all going to be like a simple typo changes. So, I mean, we have like at least one additional weekend anyways where people are like reviewing MRs, are working on something. So you only need to like submit those MRs during those particular days during the week. I mean, if you were to organize something more face-to-face, maybe doing this over the weekend, I mean, might be an option. But you know, asking people to be available or having tutorial sessions over the weekend, I didn't think it was necessarily a good thing to do. So, but something we'll definitely look at.
Yeah, thanks for that context. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks. Something I would add to raise feedback as well is that one thing that we looked at a while ago when we started doing the hackathons was whether we could get some data on when contributors are most active. I mean, we didn't have perfect data, but one of the things that we were looking at was, for instance, the forum, where you get a nice graph on when people are most active on the forum, for instance. It's not 100% accurate data, but you could clearly see like peaks and valleys where the peak was during the week and then the valley was at weekends.
Yeah, I think the next question is from Sid. Yeah, I think David, you probably just saw this too. It's going to be published, I think, on the PR page sometime this morning, but it did hit the wires yesterday for the KDE announcement. But
okay, thanks. Sid, is there anything else that you want to add to this, or shall we jump to the next question?
No, good. I requested access, but no other questions. Simon has the next question.
Okay. Simon, do you want to voice the question, please?
So I love the data in slide 7. I think my next thought is, what's the top of funnel for the contributors that we have? Do we have a trend line for first-time contributors as well? That data.
No, yeah, thanks for the question, Simon. I don't necessarily think there's a trend. Let me just go take a look at it really quick. I think the level's been somewhat consistent for each release. There'll be about 45 to 50 first-time contributors getting their MRs merged. It's not necessarily like going up, but it's been sort of a steady state, I guess, 45 to 50 per each release.
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
Looks like I have the next one. Of the different contributions that we get, do we see those going more to one stage versus others?
So you're talking about like at different product stages, like create or manage, et cetera,
yes.
et cetera.
Yeah.
Good question. I haven't taken a look at that yet. I mean, some of the newer stages, I mean, that's one of the things we try to raise. I mean, that's hackathons, one of the mechanisms that we try to raise awareness. I've invited, product managers from different stages to come talk about what they do and what the contributions are welcomed. But I mean, I think for the most part, I mean, to be honest, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it'll be the ones that have been around for a longer period of time, things like create, manage, and others that's gotten more of the contributions. So I mean, this is another way to plug for some of the newer product managers to get involved in hackathons to help get the word out. So.
Okay, great. Thanks for that answer.
Sure.
But I think that's a good point. I think this is something that we could actually, Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is something that we could start tracking on Bitergia on our contributors dashboard because of the labels, right? Yeah.
Right. Yep.
I'm next before I type this out. For the new migrations for Tor and Arch Linux, are they moving to self-managed? Are they moving to .com? And kind of what are the top concerns for them picking one versus the other right now?
Let me just go to the slide. I think both are ultimate, meaning self-managed. Let me just go to the slide to be certain. Yeah, they're using both our ultimate license. We've just started the conversation with them, so we haven't really discussed the concerns that they have. Some of the one thing that Arch Linux mentioned was that they were using our LDAP integration, so they're using their own ID or their own way of logging into the instance. But they are pretty much self-serve in the sense that so far they've already started their own instances. They've already created them. Sorry, I think Arch Linux were already testing it. Tor weren't that far along the way. For what we tend to see with open source projects is that some of them do want to have their instance, mostly because there are policies for contribution where they only want to use open source licensed software. And some of the challenges are for us and for them is that some of them are really large projects. And some of the features that are generally in the GitLab EE is something that they could very well use. So it's always a conversation or a negotiation on whether it makes sense for us as a company and for them as a project to move something to move a particular feature to CE. I think this is the biggest challenge. The other challenge is it depends on the project, whether it's an individual doing the migration or a group of individuals. It could be that there's only one person behind the infrastructure team on a particular project, or there's a foundation, or there's some other sort of consortium. Generally, if it's a group of individuals, there's obviously more resources in terms of people, in terms of time, in terms of network, and in these cases, it generally goes smoothly. It's more of a challenge when they need some more help from us as well, because it requires more time, and then perhaps spending more time with our engineering team.
Great, thanks. No, it's very exciting to see.
If anyone wants us to delve into any particular slide, just let us know. Perhaps if there are no questions yet, one thing that I'll do is to highlight some of the work. We've been talking about contributors quite a lot, I think, about contributors so far. I'd like to highlight the way the work that's been happening around meetups and heroes. Again, this is the work of John Coughlin. And from the Heroes program, we've been having conversations in terms of how we can best, how can we best serve our community, be effective, and still have the right programs to cater for the right type of contributor. One of the things that we noticed is that in our analysis was that we have quite a lot of programs and initiatives. It's shown on slide 13. We've been looking at ways in which we can perhaps put more of our programs into the Heroes umbrella and to strengthen that brand. And with the ultimate goal of unifying practices and processes, having a more streamlined process and having an entry path for contributors that's easy to understand as well. So we literally started this conversation. We don't have a dedicated issue for this. There's a past issue on the slides that I'm thinking of perhaps rehashing, but we'll most probably open either a merge request or an issue to discuss this. But yeah, any thoughts in general would be welcome on this. Okay, so it seems there are no more questions. I'll just mention this. If you want to reach us, check out the final slide. We're on the community relations channel. There's links to our handbook as well. And if we can help in any way, again, feel free to reach us. Anything with this, we can wrap it up for today. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you everyone for your questions and your feedback.